Hi, my name is Rabbi Jonathan Simons, and I'm doing this as part of an interview for Cami. They wanted to know a little bit about what we do, or I do as a Jewish studies teacher in the UK, using Cami tools. So at the moment, my responsibility in the school which I teach at was to integrate technology into Jewish studies lessons, and we are an Orthodox school based in Manchester. And what I found was, as I started to integrate technology, is because we didn't have an infrastructure behind us, so an easy way of handing out work to students, making sure it had been marked. I actually stopped working on looking at all the different tools and really worked my way backwards, set up the infrastructure. So we happen to use Google Classroom, and that was a good way to distribute work for the students. And I've always been looking at going paperless for what I've been doing, and Cami ticked the boxes for what I wanted to do. And as I was saying, as I built up greater and greater with what I was doing with integrating technology into the Jewish studies classroom, is we are a mainstream school as well. So we have what we call secular studies, which is what everybody else calls school. I started working with that part of the school as well. And when COVID hit and we went into lockdown, we really went straight away into online school mode. We were ready, and my students were ready. And it'd been a long time. I'd heard about Cami through being online and just being involved in Google groups. I'm a Google trainer as well, and I really wanted to use it. So I've been using Cami for about 6-7 months. I've been obviously speaking to them, watching videos online for a little bit longer. And as a Jewish studies teacher, especially, we work a lot with ancient texts, biblical texts. So there's a big use for Cami. And also, as Jewish studies teachers, many of us use programs such as Dovka, which is a Hebrew word processor, like the Hebrew version of Word. And many of us use proprietary tools, either Smartboard or whatever, Promethean as well, and that's worldwide. And what was happening is that as these things were phased out, or you ended up teaching at other schools, you couldn't take your work with you. And I found this very much earlier on, is I refused to use proprietary programs. So I would always use Word instead of Dovka, and I would never use Smartboard or Promethean. I'd rather use PowerPoint or Google Slides. So all my stuff, all my materials were basically word processed and ready to go, and all it was a case of doing is moving stuff around. So if I needed to create a new worksheet or whatever, I could literally just copy and paste and then adapt, obviously depending on the medium which I was using. So the problems that Cami solved for me really was, I was desperate to go paperless. I wanted to make sure that I was working online. I wanted to make the materials accessible to my students. And when I made my worksheets more interactive, because really that's what I want, I don't want to just create another worksheet. So the tools in Cami, such as using video, so that students can video themselves or make an audio recording, because we're using foreign language such as Aramaic and Biblical Hebrew, and it's foreign to the children, the type of children which I teach, is often reading is the weakest part for our students. So for me to be able to have the students, one, be able to read the text so I can check they've read it, and also to explain. It's not just, shall we say, read and translate something into English so that they understand it. They actually have to explain so that, what the meaning of the text, what the text itself is discussing. So the beauty of that is you can have that all done within your document. So all my old, shall we say, worksheets and documents, I can revamp them, convert them to PDF, and then load them straight into Kami. And through Kami, I can then distribute through Google Classroom, and that's really what I use it for. Especially as well, a lot of our stuff requires marking up. So for argument's sake, if you have French, you have your main words and suffixes, I think prefixes as well. So in Hebrew, you have something called your shoresh, which is your root word, and they put prefixes and suffixes on it, so you know it's yours, masculine, feminine, mine, etc., future, past, and whatever. So we expect the students to be able to break down and mark up the text. Also, the advantages once you put it online is that the children can learn anywhere, and you can integrate Kami into a suite of tools. So for argument's sake, I use something like Merkava. So the children will learn the text with me. They will do the preparation learning with me. We don't like to give them the English straight away. So we let them mark up a text with the prefixes, with this idea. I think markup for you guys would be punctuate it. They can then sing it because the text has a tune, and then they can explain or even demonstrate their understanding. So if it's something which is text which is based on something which, shall we say, has a practical outcome, using the video within Kami, the screen recorder, they can demonstrate their knowledge. And it's so simple and so straightforward, and it works, and it makes this type of learning much more accessible for the children because it's built within. It's part of on Google Classroom, and we can use those other digital tools to go with it. And I'm not throwing away a lot of my old stuff. A lot of Jewish studies teachers, the problem is they're either using very proprietary tools like I've mentioned, and thus they can't move on to other things. They can't use the tools which they've already made. But if they convert their Dafka document, for example, that Hebrew word processor document, into a PDF, they can revamp and use those old documents. It removes a barrier for them. So you're not throwing out all that old material, which is very good stuff. But it just needs to be brought in to online learning. And I actually carried on by using Kami online. Is my students, for those people that understand, they learn Rashi online with it, they learn Chumash, which is Bible text. I did make a video on learning Gemorah or Talmud. It's the same thing for us, by being able to mark up questions, answers, and being able to say over and explain the Gemorah within the document itself. My favorite Kami tool is actually the fact that it all works within Google Classroom itself. You can assess it within Google Classroom, and really the recording tools, because one, I can give instructions using the recording tools. I know where my students are weak when it comes to understanding instructions. I might choose to read the instructions to them so they've got it, and then they can demonstrate their own knowledge. It just makes something very interactive at each level, and I can see exactly where each student is up to and what they themselves need. And it's so powerful, and it's so good for Jewish studies teachers, essential especially for learning text. And I really recommend everyone, especially in Jewish studies world, to have a look. Don't worry, you can still use your old materials, revamp it by all means, but you don't have to start again from scratch. It's totally excellent and will suit your needs. So in my class, they were trained to use Google Classroom, but I actually, before the lockdown, did not get a chance to train the students on using Kami. And it's always a worry when it comes to introducing a new app. You feel you really have to do it face to face. But I made literally, I think it was a 7 or 8 minute video just to show the students the main tools of Kami and what I expected them to use it for. and they were ready. And the ease of use is so important, because we do, if we're all honest as teachers, especially teachers that use technology, we lose a lot of lesson times trying to get good results and training the children to use the technology tools. And I have to say, this was very, very quick. It was a quick turnaround to do it, and I got excellent results from using Kami. Also, the people at Kami as well really want their app to succeed. So whenever I have a question, they're very quick to respond, and they bend over backwards to help. And that in turn helps me be successful with my students, and my students become a success as well. So you're speaking on the other end to a human being at the end of the day, and that's an amazing thing. It's very rare nowadays. So there's a lot to thank Kami themselves for.